This video will make you rethink just how safe you really are in your own home. Home is meant to be a refuge, a place where you can unwind, step away from social demands, and, above all, feel protected. When that space is invaded, it's not just a breach of privacy, but a deeply shocking and unsettling violation. This case stands out as one of the most senseless and heartbreaking crimes, and the worst part is, it could have been prevented with something as simple as turning a key. Today, we look into the tragic story of Amanda Blackburn. Our journey takes us to Indianapolis, a city celebrated for its close-knit community spirit and small-town warmth, where over 83% of residents identify as Christian. Nicknamed the Crossroads of America, Indianapolis sits at the intersection of routes connecting Michigan, Illinois, Kentucky, and Ohio, a meeting point for people whose paths might otherwise never cross. For the couple at the center of this story, this is an event they wish had never entered their lives. Meet 28-year-old Amanda and her husband, 30-year-old Davy Blackburn, a devoted pastor and his warm, compassionate wife. To many, they embodied the image of the ideal American couple, admired for their faith, kindness, and promising future. Their move from South Carolina had been fueled by a shared mission to bring the Word of God to a new community. Together, they launched Resonant Church in the northern part of Indianapolis, a ministry they began in 2011 with the goal of sharing the gospel's transformative power. While many might picture church founders as older and more seasoned, Amanda and Davy broke that mold. They were young, energetic, and deeply connected to the modern world. Back in 2006, Amanda and Davy first crossed paths at Pensacola Christian College in Florida, and their connection quickly blossomed into a deep and meaningful romance. Amanda was born in the summer of 1987 in Assen, Michigan, to Phil and Robin, a devout Christian couple, her father serving as a pastor. In 1995, the family relocated to Elkhart, Indiana, where Amanda grew up alongside her siblings, Amber and James. She was known for her gentle, caring spirit and shared a close bond with her brother and sister. As a teenager, Amanda stood out for her diligence, excelling academically while also being active in her church community. After graduating from Elkhart Christian Academy in 2006, she made the courageous decision to leave home and begin a new chapter in Florida. It was in Florida that Amanda met Davy, a man admired for his warmth, humor, and easygoing charm. Cliché or not, his smile truly had a way of lighting up a room. As they spent more time together, they discovered their dreams and values aligned. Before long, they moved in together and welcomed a dog named Mel into their lives, treating him as if he were their own child. Photos from those days overflowed with joy and affection. By August 2008, just 2 years after meeting, Amanda and Davy's love culminated in marriage, deepening their connection even further. In 2011, they made the move to Indianapolis, pursuing their shared mission of spreading the message of Christ. The relocation also brought Amanda closer to her family, something that became even more meaningful in 2014 when the couple celebrated the arrival of their first child, a son named Weston. As a family, they flourished. Davy found deep fulfillment in his role as a pastor and in helping establish their church, while Amanda stayed active, running marathons with her parents and siblings. Davy maintained his fitness through regular workouts at LA Fitness. Their social media reflected a vibrant, joyful life, full of family, friends, and a growing church community. In 2015, their happiness expanded with the news that they were expecting their second child, a daughter they named Everett Evie Grace Blackburn. Tragically, the bright future they had envisioned was abruptly shattered. On November 10, 2015, what began as a typical workday for Davy quickly turned into a day that would change everything. He rose around 6 a.m. for his morning workout, a feat so early that some might call it proof of divine intervention, given how hard it can be to leave the comfort of bed at that hour. About an hour later, he completed his routine and returned home around 7:30 a.m. Rather than waking Amanda, Davy stepped outside to take a phone call in the car. Trying to be considerate. Under normal circumstances, this wouldn't have seemed unusual, but that morning would prove far different from any other. When he returned inside, Davy was met with a horrifying scene. Amanda was lying on the floor, surrounded by a pool of blood. Though she was still breathing, she was unresponsive. Thankfully, their son Weston was upstairs, safe and unharmed. After checking on him, Davy immediately called emergency services, urgently pleading for help to save Amanda. Paramedics arrived quickly, finding Davy at the end of the driveway, his hands covered in blood. Amanda had been shot 3 times, once in the back, once in the arm, and once in the back of the head. Miraculously, she was still alive, but her condition was critical. With every second counting, she was rushed to the hospital in a desperate effort to save her life. Tragically, despite every effort to save her, Amanda and her unborn child passed away the following day, with Davy holding her hand in her final moments. The loss was devastating, leaving Davy to grieve not only his wife but also the daughter they had been expecting, all on what had started as an ordinary November morning. In the aftermath, 3 urgent questions loomed. How did this happen? Who was responsible? And why Amanda? It was evident that Amanda had been brutally murdered, and someone had to be held accountable. But who could have committed such a crime and why? Authorities launched an investigation, yet they too were confounded. The Blackmans had no known enemies, outstanding debts, or disputes within their community. They led a peaceful, joyful life and were cherished by those around them. The motive remained a mystery, and the case seemed to raise more questions than it answered. When investigators examined the crime scene, several disturbing clues came to light. Davy and Amanda had trusted their community deeply and rarely locked their front door. On the morning of Amanda's murder, this lack of security allowed her killers to enter without resistance. The normally orderly home was unrecognizable. Large blood spatters and traces of brain matter were scattered about 5 feet from Amanda's body. She was found lying face down, unclothed with her underwear nearby. Nearby, a scattered pile of mail and bank cards was discovered, though not all of the cards were accounted for. On the counter lay a pack of Swisher cigars, a pair of earphones, and a roll of duct tape, none of which belonged to the Blackmans. Amanda's cell phone was untouched in her bedroom, and their dog, Mel, though trapped, was found alive and unharmed. Another key piece of evidence surfaced. Amanda's phone showed a missed call from Chase Bank at 7:53 a.m. on the morning of her death. Detectives soon discovered that the missed call was related to suspicious activity on Amanda's bank account. While the case initially pointed to a tragic home invasion, the presence of so much clear evidence led some to speculate that the scene might have been staged. Critics even questioned the seemingly convenient timing of Davy being away from the house when Amanda was attacked, suggesting it could be more than mere coincidence. Yet this suspicion didn't hold up under closer scrutiny. Davy's routine was highly predictable, and if the perpetrators knew his schedule, they could have expected him to be out for at least an hour and that the front door would be unlocked. Davy also had multiple confirmed aliases at the gym, further complicating the narrative. Beyond these anomalies, the couple appeared genuinely happy, deeply in love, and excitedly preparing for the arrival of their second child. Despite this, some people were quick to form their own conclusions, especially given the number of scandals involving pastors in recent years. High-profile cases like those of John White, Timothy Tillman, and Helga Fosmo have fueled public skepticism toward religious leaders, and Davy, as a pastor, was not immune. Some even drew parallels to ongoing controversies, such as the Texas megachurch investigation, where leaders were removed for their knowledge of abuse and murder. It's alarming how often such issues go unnoticed. And with mainstream media frequently swayed by outside influences, it's easy to see why many stories slip under the radar. Following Amanda's tragic death, Davy launched a campaign to draw attention to the case. He leveraged social media, local news, interviews, and every available outlet to spread the word, hoping to uncover leads that could help identify Amanda's killer. Unfortunately, this effort inadvertently fueled online speculation, with amateur detectives suggesting Davy himself might have been involved in the crime. Critics pointed to his seemingly controlled demeanor in interviews, his 12-minute delay in calling emergency services, and the speed with which he turned to social media for support. Despite the growing online accusations, Davy's close friends and family stood by him, working to protect him from the harsh scrutiny of public opinion. As often happens in high-profile cases, Davy couldn't escape the impact of the mounting public scrutiny. Meanwhile, authorities fully cleared him of any involvement, turning their attention instead to the events of that tragic morning. While debates about Davy's role persisted online, detectives remained confident that he was not responsible and leaned toward the conclusion that Amanda's death resulted from a home invasion gone terribly wrong. Investigators soon discovered that Amanda's home was not the only one targeted that morning. Her house was one of 3 burglarized in the neighborhood, and several other homes had been hit earlier that same month. This pattern of break-ins strengthened the theory that Amanda's murder was connected to a wider string of crimes in the area. One particularly chilling incident occurred just a week earlier when a masked intruder broke into a home while the owner was showering. He forced her out at gunpoint and stole valuables, following a pattern that would soon become all too familiar. Robbery targeting high-value items such as jewelry, purses, cell phones, and laptop. At the Blackburn home, however, very little was taken aside from a credit card and a MacBook, suggesting the intruders were likely interrupted. Naturally, Amanda's tragic death left the neighborhood reeling. In a collective effort to aid the investigation, residents shared their home surveillance footage that would prove to be a critical piece of evidence. One neighbor remembered hearing what she thought were 2 gunshots around 6:30 a.m., though she had dismissed them at the time. As the investigation continued, more neighbors came forward with unsettling accounts. Several reported seeing a shadowy figure dressed in black, hood pulled tight, talking on a phone around 7 a.m. before getting into a silver Chrysler Sebring. Surveillance footage later confirmed these reports, capturing a masked man lurking in the shadows before entering the vehicle. This car would become a critical piece of evidence in the case. It had been stolen just a few hours earlier at 5:23 a.m. when the owner reported a burglary to Indianapolis police. Although she hadn't seen the thief, she woke to find her porch door open and several items missing, including her cell phone, laptop, purse, car keys, and the Chrysler Sebring itself. The home surveillance footage captured the burglars in action, showing that 3 men were involved in the break-in. Based on the timeline, investigators believe they went directly from stealing the car to targeting Davy and Amanda's home. Even more chilling, after fatally shooting Amanda, the men continued their crime spree. Just an hour later, another burglary was reported with the same 3 suspects caught on surveillance cameras nearby. It's hard to comprehend. After committing murder during a botched robbery, they carried on as if nothing had happened. With the homeowners away, they casually helped themselves to a wide array of items, including 4 televisions, a MacBook Pro, a Tiffany necklace, a sweater, bed sheets, and even a bag of oranges. After their spree, the burglars even took several bottles of wine, a choice that wasn't particularly nutritious but proved incredibly useful for investigators, as the bottles left behind allowed officers to collect DNA evidence. The most pivotal piece of evidence, however, was the stolen car. Although its license plate had been removed, the make, model, and color were still known, giving authorities a crucial lead. In fact, the car was located just 1 day later, abandoned only minutes from the crime scene. Inside, investigators discovered a range of items, including an oversized men's sweater, a bag of oranges, a universal remote, a pink men's shirt, and an ATM receipt showing a failed attempt to withdraw $500 using Amanda's missing debit card. The receipt was traced back to a gas station near the Blackmans' home. Police discovered that one of the men had attempted to conceal his identity by wrapping the pink shirt around his face, but he forgot to take it when abandoning the car. This oversight left behind a DNA sample on the shirt, which later proved to be a critical piece of evidence. The DNA matched 21-year-old Jaylen E. Watson, who had recently been released on parole for a previous burglary. Further investigation into Watson's criminal background revealed a connection to an accomplice named Deano Gordon. Both men were under parole supervision, including monitoring of their cell phone activity. By triangulating their phone signals, investigators confirmed that Watson and Gordon had been present at all 3 burglary sites that morning, including the ATM where the failed withdrawal attempt had occurred. Further investigation revealed that Watson and Gordon had made several phone calls that day, including one to 18-year-old Larry Joe Taylor Jr. This connection led authorities to identify all 3 suspects. By tracking their cell phones, investigators confirmed that the men had been together the night before the crimes. Their landlord corroborated this, stating they had left around 3:30 a.m., taking her boyfriend's handgun and a shirt with them. Both items were later linked to the crime scene, with the handgun also tied to another murder earlier that month. 11 days after Amanda's death, Larry Joe Taylor Jr. was arrested on suspicion of murder, theft, and breaking and entering. By December, Jaylen Watson and Deano Gordon had also been taken into custody. As often happens when multiple suspects are arrested, tensions arose and the trio began turning on each other. Deano was the first to break, agreeing to a plea deal in exchange for providing information about his accomplices. According to him, the 3 had planned a series of home burglaries that morning, but it was Larry who suggested bringing a gun. Once inside the Blackburn home, Larry entered Amanda's bedroom while she was asleep, seemingly seeking the thrill of the act. The situation escalated when Amanda resisted. What began as a robbery quickly turned into a hostage situation. Armed with the handgun, Larry held Amanda while the other 2 drove to an ATM to use her debit card. Phone records confirmed they stayed in contact throughout the ordeal. When her PIN failed, Larry realized Amanda would not comply. He then hung up, forced himself on her, and ultimately shot her 3 times as she collapsed. After the shooting, Larry called his friends to pick him up, an event captured on surveillance footage as he got into the Chrysler. Deano also disclosed that Larry appeared almost proud of his actions, even standing over Amanda as she bled out, seemingly indifferent to the tragedy. He then instructed the others to prepare for their next heist. Based on this testimony, Larry's charges were expanded to include burglary, robbery causing serious bodily harm, criminal confinement, auto theft, carrying a gun without a license, and 2 counts of felony murder. Charges that would become central to the case. It's important to note that Larry Taylor's 2 murder charges were for Amanda and another man he allegedly killed earlier that year, but they did not include the death of Amanda's unborn child. Deano honored his plea deal to testify against Larry, and Jaylen was expected to do the same. With both accomplices cooperating, Larry's prospects at trial were grim. However, the legal process faced frustrating delays, including 2 mistrials caused by technicalities related to Amanda's pregnancy. Because no murder charges were filed in connection with the unborn baby, the judge ruled that Amanda's pregnancy could not be mentioned during the trial. However, since several jurors were already aware of it, the trial could not proceed normally. Ultimately, a bench trial was agreed upon, meaning the judge alone would determine Larry's fate, a decision that likely did not work in his favor. Larry was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to 86 years in prison, ensuring he would never be free again. The trials for Deano Gordon and Jaylen Watson took place in March 2021. Thanks to their plea deals, both were charged with 2 counts of burglary and robbery resulting in serious bodily harm, while 5 additional charges were dropped. Jaylen was sentenced to 29 years, later reduced to 15 with a minimum of 10 years to be served. Deano received a 30-year sentence with 25 years to be served in prison and 5 years on probation. The difference in Jaylen's and Deano's sentences remains unclear, especially since Deano was the first to cooperate. Their trials took place in 2021 and 2022, and Amanda's family endured 7 long, painful years before finally achieving some sense of closure. Davy, having lost both his wife and unborn child, admits that he, like anyone, experienced intense anger and struggled with negative emotions toward Amanda's killers. Over time, however, he learned to view them differently and ultimately found it in his heart to show mercy, likely influenced by his faith. Yet, Davy's quick entry into a new relationship less than a year after Amanda's death stirred controversy. He remarried within a year, which many found surprising. While there is no right way to grieve, some criticize the speed of his remarriage, though others understand that grief manifests differently for everyone. This decision fueled suspicion among critics, even though there was no evidence linking him to Amanda's death, and none of the killers ever suggested he played a role. Even as he moved forward, Amanda remained a constant presence in Davy's thoughts. In his book, he humorously wrote that one day in heaven he would introduce Amanda to her killers, giving them a chance to share their frustrations and fond memories of her. As an avid runner, Davy feels that Amanda passed the baton to Krista, a connection that, though unintentional, has helped both him and Krista find some measure of peace. Like all of Amanda's loved ones, Davy remembers her as a selfless, loving, and beautiful soul who always put others first. Her family continues to feel the profound sadness of her loss, a void that can never be filled. In his reflections, Davy described Amanda as the most selfless person he had ever known, someone who lived her life for others and left a lasting impact on everyone around her. He wrote, "She made her life about other people, and that's why people were so deeply affected by her. We all felt Amanda's love and care because she never made her life about herself." While the case has been solved, a small portion of people will likely always remain skeptical, questioning Davy's involvement.